Hey everybody, my name's Mike Montgomery, and today I'd like to show you how I built this mid-century modern coffee table with a hidden drawer. On Modern Builds. Today's video is brought to you by Craftsman and the Amazon Holiday Gift Guide. I couldn't be more excited to announce that in today's video, I'm going to be using Craftsman's new V20 system of cordless power tools. Some amazing Craftsman products are available on Amazon's Holiday Gift Guide page, which will be linked down in the description. So make sure and check that out, along with all the other amazing products on that page. Everything you see here, from the miter saw to the finish nailer, even the random orbit sander, all runs on their new V20 Max lithium-ion platform. But for now, let's unbox these tools and get this project started. The first of my new Craftsman tools that I opened up is the 7¼ inch V20 portable sliding miter saw. This tool has a crosscut capacity of 8 inches, which is really unique for a saw its size. It's lightweight, portable, and has these integrated handles, which are one of my favorite features. The base for this project is assembled out of solid birch 1x4s. And right now I'm cross-cutting 4 leg blanks that are slightly oversized. Using a digital protractor, I set the angle to 75 degrees. Then, I lined up the tool so that I could make a pencil mark that met at the corner of the board. Then I used my tape measure along the edge of the board and I made a mark 15½ inches from the intersection point on the opposite edge. And after marking that line, I measured 3/4 inch from the same edge of the board and then connected the corner with that mark. Here you see me adjusting the miter saw to 15 degrees, and I'm going to use it to cross-cut all of my leg blanks to their final length. After that, I clamped my leg blank to the edge of the workbench so I could cut the taper going along the length of each leg. And to do that, I'm going to use my new Craftsman V20 jigsaw. Battery-powered jigsaws are definitely the way to go. There's nothing worse than having a cord in your way while you're trying to cut your workpiece. And I've really got to say, this Craftsman jigsaw did a great job. I was able to get smooth, clean cuts that were relatively straight, but my favorite feature of this saw is that it's got a dust blower on the front of it that clears the chips out of the way so you can always see the line when you're cutting. No jigsaw is going to give you perfectly smooth, perfectly straight cuts, especially when I'm the one running it, so after I cut all of my leg tapers, I grabbed 80 grit sandpaper along with my new random orbit sander from Craftsman and smoothed everything out. I clamped my 4 legs together, that way I could sand them all down so that they were exactly uniform. So now that I'm finished building the legs, I'm going to work on making the aprons that are going to go along the length of the base. These pieces, along with the legs, are going to combine to make the leg assemblies. To start, I cut more birch 1x4s to rough length. Just like my leg blanks, these pieces are a little bit oversized. Then, this time I set my miter saw to 30 degrees instead of 15 degrees like I did for the legs. I cut one side to the corner and then moved my miter saw to the opposite 30-degree mark and cut the piece to its final length, 34 inches on the long edge. And from there, I could attach my legs and my apron using my go-to Gorilla Wood Glue. I just lined up the outside edge of each of the legs to the corner of the apron. And from there, I just used a couple squeezy clamps to hold everything in place while the glue dried. Only one of the leg assemblies are going to be put together this way. The other one needs to have room for the hidden drawer. I lined the legs up the same way, but then made a pencil mark on the inside edge of each leg. Then, I grabbed my jigsaw and I cut exactly on the line. This is going to create my 2 pieces for the leg assembly as well as my drawer front with continuous grain. I left my leg assemblies in the clamps for about 30 minutes until the glue was able to cure. In the meantime, I went back to the miter saw and I cut 4 14-inch long stretchers. Then, I moved over to the table saw and I cut these to the exact width of a standard 1x3, 2½ inches wide. These 4 pieces are going to connect my leg assemblies together, and to do so, I'll use pocket hole joinery. So next, I opened up my new Craftsman V20 Drill Impact Driver Combo Kit. Man, look at how good those tools look. Both of the outside stretchers are angled to match the legs. I just clamped them in place and then drove in a couple of pocket screws. The inside stretchers, on the other hand, are squared to the table. And even though I drilled 2 pocket holes in each of these pieces, I really only needed to do 1, because as you can see, I lined up the outside corner of the stretcher with the inside edge of the leg. The drawers are going to be connecting to these inside stretchers, so it's important that they're square to the table and straight. Even though these individual leg assemblies are a little different than the full piece, they line up and attach to the stretchers the exact same way as the full apron. So no big deal, but I see a small error that I made in designing this base. I've got this opening that the hidden drawer is eventually gonna open through, but I realize now that this overhang on the legs is actually gonna keep the drawer from opening. Like I said, no big deal. I just made these spacer blocks with this angle bracket that I'm gonna glue to the inside of each of these pieces. The drawer slides will eventually attach to these, and these angle brackets will secure the top to the base. With the base complete, I'd like to give a big thanks to this video's sponsor, Craftsman, who's partnered with Amazon to create the ultimate holiday gift guide. Amazon makes holiday shopping easy by curating unique gift guides that make it easy to find the right gift for whoever's on your nice list. You've seen me use this drill and impact driver combo kit from Craftsman. They've also got other great Craftsman tools like the 18-gauge cordless brad nailer and the Craftsman 57-piece toolkit that works great in your home or in your workshop. To find these great deals and many more, make sure and follow the link down in the description to Amazon's holiday gift guide. So another huge thanks to Craftsman and Amazon for partnering with me on today's project. Now back to the build. The top for this coffee table is the only piece of plywood, and I used 3/4 inch birch to match the base. I used a straight edge along with my new Craftsman 6.5 inch V20 circular saw set to 30 degrees to cut the bevel on the first end of my plywood top. And after that, I moved my straight edge so that I could cross-cut my table to its final length of 40 inches, and I used masking tape to help prevent tear out. Then I set the circular saw back to cutting 90 degrees, and I ripped it 20 inches wide. I found that this circular saw cut really well and that the metal base plate was really sturdy. Often, this is a common fail point of cheap circular saws, and that's definitely not the case for this one. I used the same 1.25" pocket hole screws to attach the base and the top. I really like the square driver that these screws use. The square driver head tends to grab better. I used this quick clamp setup to make sure that I was screwing my base down square to the top. Each of the legs were pinching in a bit, so I just used some Maker brand clamps to help spread them out before I screwed them down in place to the top. This is important visually, that way all the legs are symmetrical, but it's also really key to make sure that the inside of the cabinet where the drawer is going to go is square. Once I knew that it was, I locked everything in place. Here I'm cutting all of my pieces to length for my drawer, and make sure and check out the PDF plans linked in the description for these measurements. Then I moved over to the table saw so that I could cut a quick groove on the bottom of these pieces for an 1/8 inch thick piece of plywood. I was excited to get to this point in the project because I could try out my new Craftsman V20 16-gauge finish nailer. You've seen me use cordless finish nailers in the past, and I was really impressed with how balanced this tool felt in my hand. And it had plenty of power to sink 1 3/4 finish nails through this hard birch. Off camera, I cut a piece of 1/8 inch plywood to fit as the drawer bottom. I wanted to conserve as much capacity in this drawer, that's why I used as thin of material as I could. Typically, I would use 1/4 inch plywood. Then I marked center lines on the drawer box, as well as the cabinet so that I could install soft close drawer slides. Next, I got another piece of 3/4 inch 1x3 and I used it as a spacer between the front of the drawer and the actual drawer face. The void created underneath this spacer is going to be a hidden handhold. And to attach the drawer face, I used a little bit of hot glue and wood glue. Unfortunately, I lost this clip, but you've seen me do it plenty of times before. Next, I moved to edge banding my plywood top. And this iron-on veneer really worked great. Typically, you see me lean into plywood edges and actually do more to show them off, but since I had a solid wood base, I really thought it would look kind of weird if I didn't do this to the top. And I just used a standard razor blade to trim all the excess veneer. From there, I could go through the grits and sand all the way up to 220 grit with the random orbit sander in preparation for finish. I used this micro zip sanding sponge from Gator, one of my sponsors, to get into all the nooks and crannies of this base. There's a lot of weird geometry happening that was tough to reach with the random orbit sander, and this worked great. After that, I used a tack cloth to remove all the excess dust from the table. This is a step that I don't typically do, but Gator was nice enough to send me a pack of these with some sandpaper. And after applying 2 coats of Varathane water-based polyurethane to preserve that light birch color, it was clear that the tack cloth actually made a difference. I had a smoother finish than I typically do, so I'm going to make sure and always wipe down my project with a tack cloth prior to finishing. And from there, I cut a piece of felt to line the inside of the drawer, and this project is finished. Going into this project, I had 2 challenges, or maybe 3. The first was to make a clean, mid-century modern-inspired coffee table that looked great on its own. The second challenge was to use all standard 1x4s and 1x3s without ripping a bunch of boards to width, in case somebody watching who wanted to build this didn't have a table saw. Neither of these challenges were as tough as working in the third, which was a hidden drawer for everyday items. I wanted a space for things like remotes or other kinds of electronics like a laptop. Or maybe you want to hide something a little bit more tasteful like some whiskey. Or gin. Or whatever your preference is. Regardless, I am really happy with this project and the hidden storage incorporated within it. It's inconspicuous and works into the design of the base, and who can hate soft closed drawers? So really, thanks a ton for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're interested in building this project for yourself, make sure and follow the link down in the description to my website where I've got free downloadable PDF plans. It'll have some basic dimensions and cut lists, that way you're able to replicate this for yourself. If you're not already, you should be following me on Instagram. I am at Modern Builds. I post all the time throughout the week, and my Instagram stories are fire. If you're not already subscribed to Modern Builds here on YouTube, make sure and click that subscribe button as well as the notification bell, especially if you haven't been getting my videos in your subscriptions feed lately. One more huge thanks to Craftsman and Amazon for sponsoring this video and making this content possible, and we'll see you next time on Modern Builds. Bye everybody.